This is Grace Notes. I'm Alan Button, and pleased to have as our guest today, Megan Williams. Megan is, we could fill in that blank with a number of things. The mother of three sons, 11, 9, and 15 months. The wife of Chuck, who is currently deployed in Iraq. A graduate of Louisiana State University, having majored in English and minored in psychology and sociology. Let me leave it there for now. Megan, just say welcome.
Thanks for having me.
Megan, if we could, why don't you start by telling us how you ended up in North Carolina, having been born in New Orleans, as I understand it.
Yes, New Orleans. Military. My husband was stationed at Fort Bragg 4 years ago. We've never been anywhere longer than 2.5 years, and we kind of fought to stay. Got a second assignment, and I'm heartbroken we might leave next summer, but I hope we come back. We've fallen in love with the state.
So you've been in North Carolina now for 4 years?
Yeah.
Uh-huh. Well, I know from having talked to you before we came into the studio that it's been a busy 4 years for you.
A little bit.
You came to our attention for a couple of reasons, one of which was your involvement in foster care. Tell us about that and how you got involved in it.
Sure. We are licensed foster parents. We actually first started the journey in Kansas, but it wasn't the right time for us. And when we came to North Carolina, we knew we wanted to do it here. We've had 8 kiddos in our home, boys and girls. Anywhere from 3 to 11 was our oldest. So
racially diverse also.
Oh, absolutely. Completely. Quite a spectrum of people and kids.
Why did you get involved in foster care?
We actually, initially back in Kansas, we had a family member that went into care that we wanted to petition to adopt, and that we were not meant to be her parents. I was not meant to be her mama. But that really opened our eyes to the system and how hard it is to even get started sometimes, but how it works across state lines and how many kids there are that need a safe place to settle for a bit.
Tell us more about that. What is the nature of the need out there?
Oh, it's massive. We have one of our neighboring counties. They have 1,000 kids in care on average, 300 teens alone that are in care, many of them in group homes. My county has anywhere from 40 to 60 kids.
That's Moore County?
Moore County, has anywhere from 40 to 60 in care at a time. Some of the kids we've had have come from Scotland County, and they have a large number with only about 7 or 8 licensed foster homes within their county.
You've used the term "the system," I think, a couple of times.
Oh, yeah.
For those of
My
us
favorite.
who are uninformed, tell us what the system is, basically.
Well, it's the system of foster care, where you have the network of the county agencies and the private agencies and Department of Social Services and Children's Services. But there's a lot of different factors that have to work together that kind of interweave. But system as a whole, too, where it's kind of this cyclical. So many of our kids have had parents that have also been touched by foster care, or lived in foster care as a child. And it just continues and keeps going around and around. And
basically, we're talking about families who, for one reason or another, can't take care of the kids in the family.
Yes. And a lot of times it's lack of resource, where the parents just don't have the right ability and training because they didn't have it as children. And so there's programs in place that can help to make that better. And hopefully their kids can return home, because that's always the number one. Biological family is always the number one. But then you also have really horrendous conditions where it's not the right place for a child to be. We've had some kids that have gone through some horrendous stuff at very young ages. And most likely they will never return home and shouldn't. But how long it takes for them to go through the quote-unquote system, and for their parents to have their rights terminated, and for a child to be free for adoption. Although everything legally, it's supposed to happen quickly and within a certain amount of time, it can take up to a year, 2 years, 3 years for some of these kids, because there's just such a backlog. And the drug epidemic is massive that is what is flooding these systems, and you don't have enough safe foster families that can step in. The best place for a child to be is in a home with parents that can provide the basics, and then as you go up, all the different levels of psychological needs and physical needs and all of it.
I gather that this first song that you've selected has something to do with your involvement in foster parenting.
Oh, yes, absolutely.
Tell us about it.
It's the anthem for fostering and for adoption.
Home by Philip Phillips.
Home by Philip Phillips. And I'm going to make this place your home. And every time a child comes in, these kiddos sometimes have been through stuff that adults haven't experienced, and they're asked to do it in their tiny little bodies and their growing brains. And they need to know they are safe, and they need to know that they have a place for whatever amount of time, and you take it day by day. And how you make a child feel safe that has lived in absolute neglect or physical abuse or sexual abuse, or it takes a lot for them to understand what is actual love and what is actual caring, because they are not wired to process that in the same way. So home is all about making a place for them and letting them know that they have a place and they hold a place.
Let's hear the song, Home by Philip Phillips.
Hold on to me as we go, as we roll down.
That was Home by Philip Phillips. If you're just joining us, our guest today is Megan Williams. Megan, we were talking before we listened to the song about your involvement in foster care, or at least how you got started. I'd like to have you tell us a little bit more about that, particularly with respect to your personal motivation. Why is it that you do what you do in terms of fostering?
Well, there's a lot of reasons. In my kitchen, I have a chalkboard up on the wall that I've written, "Plant trees under whose shade you do not expect to sit." And I think that's kind of become our family anthem. That I think we need to digest that for a minute. Give us that again. Plant trees under whose shade you do not expect to sit.
Uh-huh.
We're so transient. My 11-year-old and my 9-year-old my 11-year-old has lived in 6 states, and we are not anywhere long. And North Carolina has been an incredible exception, but we only get so much time in every place we go. And I really feel like we owe it to each place that has welcomed us and has given us a home, that we need to be part of improving it and be part of whatever makes it what it is. And as we move on, a piece of us is still there. We tell our kids all the time, our home is all these places that have built up and have built them, and that moves with them. But I think it's important for them to know that part of us stays here too, every place that we go. And when it comes to fostering, we never thought we could do that. We have my two older sons are both autistic. They have taught me a whole lot about being a mom, and they've humbled me greatly about all the things I thought being a mom was going to be like and how my kids were going to be long before I had children.
Am I right in assuming that some of what you've had to deal with respect to your two older sons and their autism is common to what you see in foster kids?
So one of the reasons we never thought we could foster, other than being military and being so transient, is their diagnosis, is that they are autistic. But what we learned is that trauma very similarly mirrors autism, and the therapies are almost exactly the same, with how you can focus on some of the behaviors that come based off of how trauma rewires a child's brain. Autism is a differently wired brain. So what we saw as a deficit of not being able to pursue fostering like we wanted to, we realized that it was actually a special skill set that we had that a lot of people don't, because we know how to handle when a child can't verbally communicate correctly, which a child in foster care might be able to speak, but they don't have the tools to be able to communicate. And that is something that we know how to do, because I have a child that didn't effectively talk until he was 5.5. And I have a child who doesn't understand gray area. He's very black and white, which is very common with kids that have gone through neglect.
I'd like to hear a little bit more in a few minutes about the details of some of what you're involved with in terms of fostering. But before we do that, maybe you could tell us a little bit more about what it's like having autistic kids in your home. And what I have in mind for those of us who may not be that familiar with such situations, as you know, we originally had you scheduled to come into the studio earlier.
Yes.
But you communicated to us that one of your sons had a meltdown. Mm-hmm. What is a meltdown in the autism world?
Well,
what does it look like?
My son's meltdown in two very different ways. Easy, the one that was having a rough time last night.
This is your 9-year-old?
It's my 9-year-old. He's Eli, but we call him Easy. And he had a really difficult time he'd been faced with a lot of transitions. He'd gone into a school because we went a day early because all the classrooms had changed. And also at back to school last year is right when my husband deployed, and he's been gone for a year. And we have another month to go. And all of that came to a head. And so for him, he couldn't process all of it. And so physically, he couldn't stop moving, and he was really pushing into different areas in his room. But it's where they are at a point where they have to work through it, and they can't just come out of it. They have to be able to go through whatever process is in their body and their brain, because they have all of these neurons that are firing in all these different ways, and they just have to work through it. And so we sit there with them and let them know I'm there, I've got it. And then we cuddle up on a beanbag with a weighted blanket and a teddy bear and come down from it. Both of my boys have incredible gifts, and we don't see autism as a negative thing or something that we mourn. We very much celebrate who our children are and what their very different brains allow them to be, and how it gives them a one-up in some things.
That actually, I think, is a great segue into this second song you've identified. Maybe you could tell us about why it's special to you. Praise You in the Storm.
Praise You in the Storm is a personal anthem of mine. We've had a good deal of loss, which everyone has. We lost a miracle baby shortly after losing the child that we hoped to adopt. And
when you say loss, you're talking miscarriage?
Miscarried, yes. Uh-huh. Yes. She was a baby that we didn't think we could have, and she surprised us, and we were so excited. And we most likely started losing her when I entered the house that we ended up buying and that we've really made a home in. And with that, we have taken that mourning and that sorrow and really turned our focus to fostering and to the community surrounding foster care in several counties. But with that, the baby that we lost, my older son, who is incredibly intuitive, and don't let anybody ever tell you autistic kids don't have empathy and can't sense those things, but he came up to me as a second grader and crawled into bed with me and asked if he could name the baby. And I said absolutely, he could do that. And he walked away for about an hour and a half, and he came right on back. And he said, I thought her name was Rose, but it's not. Her name is Daisy.
Before we came into the studio, you mentioned to me a connection with your mother with the name Daisy.
My mom miscarried a child in between my baby brother and baby sister. And when I told her what Logan, my son, said about Daisy, how he thought her name was Rose, but it was Daisy, my mom just kind of started crying. And I had no idea that baby that they had lost, they named her Rose. And the connection of that gave me chills. It still gives me chills, because we have been very open with our children about the loss of our daughter and how that affects everything we do going forward. And it's allowed my mom to also open up about that loss. And it's given us an incredible connection, because I think more and more people talk about it, and they should talk about miscarriage or secondary infertility or any of those things, because it affects so many people and it's common, and it should have a voice. And I think that it gave my mom that.
Somehow your son Logan knew that there was already somebody named Rose in the family.
Yeah, it's really cool. And Daisy has been a significant name in our last 4 or 5 years, it has given us some very clear divine intervention signs when we were debating things. But the home that we live in North Carolina, our first December there, which is when I should have been holding a brand new baby, there had just been a hard freeze. Everything was very, very frozen and dead and ugly. And I was in my backyard and I noticed this incredible patch of about a dozen white daisies that were blooming. That again popped up in May of the following year, which was the anniversary of when we lost her. While I was outside, Praise You in the Storm was on my iPhone, and the song was on my iPhone, and I was singing it, and I watched the bloom of a white daisy open up, and throughout that I heard Shelter in the Storm, and that's what we feel we do through fostering, is we're providing this safe place during the most terrible point of a child's life. No matter what they've been through, their family is their family, and to be removed from them is just as traumatic. And so it was really our mandate that this was what we needed to do. My husband took the reins with that, and we just went with it.
Let's hear the song, Praise You in the Storm by Casting Crowns.
I was sure by now, God, you would have reached down and wiped our tears away.
That was Praise You in the Storm by Casting Crowns. Megan, if you would, tell us a bit more about the details of the fostering work that you're involved with locally.
Absolutely. A need was pointed out to me about 4 years ago, right when we moved here, that first December here, that Cumberland County, their need for teens to receive gifts, that so many organizations donate stuff for younger kids because that's fun and easy, but for teens, they're really kind of missed, and shared the need to get them something. So I put out a call on Facebook, and we started collecting like Bath and Body Works and Axe and like cool name brand full-size toiletries for these kids that we put in makeup bags and shave kits and cinch sacks and backpacks. And first year we got 12, and last year, which was our 4th year, we had 528 gifts packed for teens that lived across 3 counties. We'll add a 4th county this year.
This is a fundraising effort.
It's a fundraising effort. It's just humans helping humans. It is not a nonprofit. I put out a call on social media the first year, and it's gone from there. We have an Amazon wish list. We've started calling it Gift of Daisy because we feel like she led us to it. And the newest thing that I'm so excited about is what we're calling Roots and Wings. Myself and 2 other foster moms have started a foster care closet.
Roots and Wings.
Roots and Wings.
And their names are what?
Tori and Carrie. The 3 of us are working it together under the sponsorship of the Moore County LEO Association. We have...
LEO is what?
Law Enforcement Officer Association. Our goal is when a kid enters care to get them their basic physical needs met within the first 48 hours, because it takes anywhere from 30 to 90 days for a clothing stipend or allowance to come in to those foster families to get those basic needs for a kid. And while we've all been fortunate and had our own personal communities step up every time we received a child in care, other people don't have that same network, and we want to be that network for them. And eventually we want to make it so much bigger. We want to give community and resources. We want to have different therapists come in and talk to developmental therapists, come in and talk to foster parents about the things that are available to them. Then we want to have a way to connect teens that are living in care that's a safe place for them to meet.
So you're basically talking about filling in gaps in this system that you've described.
Yes, this very overworked system. Our goal is to make it easier for every family to say yes to a child, because sometimes we do have to say no. But we want to alleviate the reasons that would physically stop a yes, that they don't have a second car seat. Okay, we've got you a second car seat. They don't have a toddler bed. Okay, we'll get you a toddler bed. Like we're trying to make it so that the no's can become yeses, and we're trying to educate our community on joining agencies and becoming foster parents, because every time more people are willing to say yes, every child is served better and their needs are met easier when there's more of a community to hold them up.
If any of our listeners are interested in getting information on how they can help or be involved where would they go?
Sure. For Roots and Wings, we have a Facebook page. It's just Roots and Wings. It's very easy to find. And all of the information is on there. Our phone number is there if you're a Moore County foster parent. So there's an email address, or you can Facebook message us, and one of the three of us will respond.
Tell us about this third song, Come Rain or Come Shine.
Sure, Come Rain or Come Shine. My husband and I kind of joke that we kind of jinxed ourselves with choosing our wedding song because we've had a lot of rain. But that's kind of the purpose of marriage, is you get through that hard stuff together. And we have our darkest times with the loss of Daisy and not getting to adopt the way we wanted to. And I wouldn't call it a dark time, but our kids with learning a new way to parent. He has stepped up, and I feel like we have really solidified our relationship as a couple in our hardest moments. And come rain or come shine.
The song has got some great lines. Come rain or come shine, happy together, unhappy together. Wouldn't it be fine? Yeah. Days may be cloudy or sunny. We're in or we're out of the money. Yeah, but I'm with you always. I'm with you, rain or shine. Yeah, terrific song. And Ray Charles, of course, is hard to beat.
Yes, agreed.
Well, Megan, it's been a real privilege to have you here today. Thank you for coming in. And I hope you know that we wish you all the best in your continuing efforts with your foster care work as well as in your family.
Thank you.
You're a real inspiration. Let's hear the song, Come Rain or Come Shine by Ray Charles.
I'm gonna love you like no one's loved you. Come rain or come shine.